I need to tell you about the time I won an argument with my landlord. I destroyed him. It was the most articulate I have ever been in my entire life. I had this clean, devastating point about the carpet that was already stained when I moved in. The dates lined up, the receipts ready, the calm and patient voice of a person who simply cannot lose. He had nothing back. He just stood there and absorbed it, blinking, while I delivered the closing statement of the century. He doesn't know any of this happened, because it happened in my shower at 8 in the morning to a man who was nowhere near my apartment. I rinsed the shampoo out, dried off, got dressed, and never sent the email. He is going to live the rest of his life with no idea that he got completely dismantled over a $400 security deposit. If you have ever done a version of this, and I would bet money that you have, then you already know the two strangest things about it. It feels incredible, and it accomplishes absolutely nothing. So today, I actually want to figure out what is going on in there. Why does your brain build a whole courtroom drama you never asked for, cast you as the brilliant lawyer, and hit play while you're just trying to wash your hair? And the part that genuinely needles me, why are you so much sharper in the shower than you ever managed to be in the room with the actual person? Let me stay with my landlord for a minute, because that one dumb little scene tells you almost everything you need to know. Start with when it happened. Not in the leasing office, not on the phone when he actually had me cornered. It happened days later in the shower, when there was nothing else in the world competing for my attention. That timing is not an accident. That timing is the entire mechanism. A shower is a weird little pocket in your day when you really look at it. It is warm, so your whole body unclenches. It is a routine so familiar your hands could run it while you are half asleep. And some mornings they basically are. And it might be the very last place left on this earth where you do not have a phone in your hand. No feed to scroll, no notifications, nothing buzzing and grabbing at you. So when nothing on the outside is demanding your attention does the only thing it can. It turns inward and wanders off on its own. If you saw my last video, you have already met the system responsible for this. There is a network in your brain that switches on the second you stop focusing on the outside world, and it is the same one that ambushes you at 3 in the morning with a memory from middle school. In the shower, it wakes up exactly the same way. But instead of digging through your past, it does something stranger and a little more interesting. It starts running simulations, because underneath everything else, your brain is a prediction machine. It is constantly building tiny models of what might be coming so that you do not get blindsided by life. What if I ask for the raise? And she says, no. What if I run into my ex at that party on Saturday? What if my coworker takes credit for my work in the meeting again? Your brain genuinely hates being caught off guard, so it rehearses. It builds the scene, writes you a rough script, and lets you run your lines a few times before opening night. And that part is honestly useful, at least on paper. There is a surprising amount of research on mental rehearsal with athletes, and some of it is hard to believe the first time you hear it. In certain studies, players who only imagined practicing their free throws, who never once picked up an actual basketball, improved nearly as much as the players who physically stood there and shot for hours. Your brain treats a vivid mental run-through a lot like the real event. So when you rehearse a hard conversation in your head, a real part of you sincerely believes it is getting valuable training in. So there is the lesson buried inside my landlord story. My brain was not trying to torment me. It was trying to prepare me for a fight it thought might still happen. The trouble is what it does the moment it starts preparing. And this is where the whole thing quietly goes sideways. Because you always win. Sit with that for a second. Because it is genuinely strange. Have you ever once lost a shower argument? Has the imaginary version of your coworker ever fired back with something so good that you froze mid-shampoo and thought, you know what? That is actually a fair point. I had not considered that. It never happens. Not once. You are undefeated in there. Your record is flawless and spotless and a little suspicious. And the second you notice you have never lost, the whole production should start to feel rigged. Because it is. It is rigged because you are quietly writing both sides of the script. You are the prosecution and the defense and the judge and the entire jury. That opponent standing across from you in your head is not really them. It is a puppet, and your own hand is the one inside it. And without ever deciding to, you have made that puppet a little slower, a little less clever, and a whole lot easier to beat than the real person would ever actually be. There is a name for this exact move. It is called a straw man, where you argue against a flimsy, weakened version of someone's position because the flimsy version is so easy to knock flat. Your brain does it on full autopilot. It does not build the smartest possible version of your landlord, the one who might have a good counterpoint, because that version is hard and that version might win. Instead, it quietly builds a guy who conveniently says exactly the things you already have a perfect, polished answer waiting for. I learned how badly I do this with my upstairs neighbor. I had a whole speech locked and loaded about his music, going until 1 in the morning. In my head, the man folded instantly. He said, "You are completely right. I am so sorry. It will never happen again." Then I actually walked up and knocked on his door, and the real human being hit me with a very reasonable complaint about my dog barking for 6 straight hours every day while I am at work. And I had no speech for that, none at all. The real him showed up to the conversation with his own material, his own grievances, his own life. The version I had been beating for a week had only ever been reading lines that I wrote for him. Which leads to a fair and slightly uncomfortable question. If these arguments are not real, and you cannot actually win anything that matters, then why on earth do they feel so unbelievably satisfying? Because your body cannot fully tell that they are fake. When you are mid-rant and there, righteously and gloriously winning, your brain hands you small doses of the very same chemistry you would get from genuinely standing up for yourself out in the real world. You feel vindicated. You feel powerful. You feel like you have finally, at long last, said the exact thing you always wish you had said. The only small problem is that you said it to absolutely no one. You collected the full emotional payoff of the confrontation without ever once having the confrontation. It feels amazing for about 4 minutes in the warm water and then changes literally nothing about your actual life. And here is something you have probably never stopped to notice about these arguments. They are almost always social. You are very rarely standing in the shower solving a quadratic equation with this kind of burning passion. You are refighting something a person said to your face. That is not random either. For most of human history, your standing inside your group was not a vanity thing. It was survival. Being challenged, embarrassed, or made to look weak in front of everyone was a genuine threat to your safety and your place in the tribe. So your brain learned, over a very long time, to take social conflict deadly seriously and to keep chewing on it long after it is over, hunting and hunting for the move that would have protected you. The stakes feel enormous to you because, to a much older part of your brain, they genuinely once were. This is the exact point where the whole thing tips over from helpful into a real trap for a lot of us, and it all comes down to one quiet distinction: rehearsing versus ruminating. Rehearsing is your brain prepping for something that is actually going to happen. You have a real meeting tomorrow, you run through it a couple of times in your head, and you walk in steadier and more prepared than you would have been. That is the system doing precisely the job it was built for. Good work, brain, gold star. Ruminating is when the conversation is already over and done, or it is never coming at all, and your brain keeps running it on a loop anyway. It is the fight with the ex from 2 years ago. It is the perfect comeback for the guy who already quit and moved to Denver and forgot you exist. You're not preparing for anything because there is nothing left in the future to prepare for. You are just rerunning an old fight on an empty stage with no audience, and your brain cannot tell the difference because the loop still feels productive. It still feels like you are doing something important. You are not. You are just slowly draining your energy into a closed circle that goes nowhere. And there is real research linking this kind of repetitive rumination to anxiety and to lying awake at night, which makes a grim kind of sense. The brain thinks it is solving something. It is just spinning. This is such an old and deeply human habit that it already had a proper name centuries ago. The French call it l'esprit de l'escalier, which translates roughly to staircase wit. A writer named Denis Diderot coined it back in the 1700s. He described being at a dinner party, getting hit with a remark he had absolutely no response to, freezing up completely in front of everyone, and then thinking of the perfect, crushing, devastating reply only after he had left the room and was already halfway down the staircase to leave. Long before anyone on earth had a hot shower with decent water pressure, this poor man was already losing his arguments at dinner and winning the glorious rematch on his way out the front door. We have been doing this for a very, very long time, and there is a real reason the perfect line always shows up late, instead of arriving when you actually need it. In the heat of the real moment, you are stressed. Someone is staring at you, your heart rate is climbing, and the part of your brain that handles quick, flexible, genuinely clever thinking gets partly shoved out of the way by the stress response. So you go a little blank. It is not that you are slow or stupid. It is that your brain pulled your single sharpest tool offline at the worst imaginable time. Then later, calm and warm and completely safe, that same part of your brain quietly comes back online, taps you gently on the shoulder, and says, "Oh, hey, by the way, here's exactly what you should have said back there." Wonderful. Incredibly helpful. You may go now. I do this with customer service calls, which might honestly be the most pathetic version of the whole thing. I once spent a genuinely embarrassing chunk of one shower arguing with a cable company representative who had already hung up on me the day before. I won, obviously. I always win against the cable company in the shower. In real life, they put me on hold for 40 minutes, and I quietly agreed to a worse plan and then thanked them for their time. I also rehearse things that are completely real and still managed to blow it. I practiced asking my boss for a raise for about a week straight. In the shower, I was calm and confident. I had my numbers ready. I had a clean and direct ask. Then I walked into her office, and what actually came out of my mouth was um, I was kind of wondering, no pressure at all, if maybe there was any flexibility possibly on, sort of compensation. The shower version of me would have quietly closed his eyes in shame. Now, I want to give your shower brain some genuine credit, because so far, I have made it sound like a malfunctioning little gremlin. And it really is not. There is a flip side to all of this, and it might actually be one of the best things your mind ever does for you. You have noticed that your best ideas also show up in the shower, right? Not just the arguments, real, actual ideas. The fix for the problem you had been banging your head against all day at work. The thing you completely forgot you needed to do. A genuinely good, creative thought that seems to arrive out of absolutely nowhere, already fully formed and gift wrapped. That is the very same machinery at work. When that network is humming along and you are not locked onto any specific task, your brain starts quietly linking ideas that do not normally sit anywhere near each other. Psychologists call it the incubation effect. You step away from a problem, you stop consciously grinding away at it, and your brain keeps working on it in the background without telling you. Then the answer floats up to the surface exactly when you are not looking for it, almost always somewhere inconvenient and wet. There is a genuine reason that I thought of it in the shower is such a worn out cliche. It is a cliche precisely because it is true for nearly everybody who has ever lived. So the shower argument and the shower epiphany are really just cousins. They are the exact same loose, relaxed, phone-free, wandering state of mind. One version of it sits there refighting an old conversation, and the other version quietly solves the thing you had been stuck on for hours. A relaxed brain is simply better at connecting distant dots. It just does not care even a little bit whether it spends that beautiful gift curing your boredom or drafting the perfect surgical text to someone who wronged you back in 2019. A professor of mine in college once told the class she had worked out the entire outline of a paper in the shower and had to write it on the foggy glass with her finger so it would not slip away before she got out and found a pen. At the time, I genuinely thought that was unhinged behavior. I now have a waterproof notepad suction cupped to my own shower wall. She was right, and I was young.
So where does all of this actually leave you? Standing in there with the water running, gloriously beating someone who is not even present. The useful move is not to try and shut the arguments down, because honestly, you cannot. And trying just makes them louder. The useful move is to notice which job your brain is actually doing in the moment. If it is rehearsing something that is genuinely going to happen, then let it run. But grab the one real point you want to make and hold on to that. The whole flawless victory speech is not going to survive contact with a real human being anyway, but the single point will, and that is the only thing you really needed. And if you catch it ruminating, replaying something that is already finished or completely fictional, just name it out loud in your head. Think, plainly and clearly, this already happened, or this is never actually going to happen. I know it sounds far too simple to possibly work, but naming it pulls a little piece of you back into the present moment, and the loop loosens its grip on you. That argument only ever has power over you while you are still willing to pretend it is real. And if you genuinely want to do something better with that strange, relaxed state, then aim it somewhere good on purpose. The same wandering, unhurried mind that is currently wasting itself on imaginary beef is the exact same mind where your best ideas quietly live. So bring a real problem in there with you, set it down gently, and just let your thoughts drift around it without forcing anything. You will honestly be surprised how often the answer simply shows up, usually right as you are rinsing off and reaching for a towel. Here's the thing I keep landing on, though, every single time I think about this: that flawless argument you keep having. The one where you finally say everything you mean, and the other person has no comeback and just has to sit there and quietly take it. It was never actually about them. It almost never is. It is about a version of you that feels completely and totally heard. Calm, sharp, understood, impossible to interrupt. That is what your brain is really building for you in there. Not a fight at all. A small, private world where you finally got to finish your sentence without anyone talking over you. And the good news, the genuinely freeing news, is that you do not need a shower to get that. You can write the thing down, you can have the real conversation, clumsily, awkwardly, like a nervous and imperfect human being, instead of perfectly inside your own head. The real version will be so much messier. You will fumble a line, they will say something you never planned for, and you will go a little blank. But it will be real, and a messy, real beats a perfect victory that nobody else ever attended. So the next time you were in there, water running, mid speech, absolutely cooking some poor soul who never agreed to any of this and is not even in the building, just catch yourself and smile a little. Your brain is doing the thing again. It practices arguments you will never have, and it solves problems you forgot you were even working on. The very least we can do is point that strange, brilliant, slightly unhinged machine at the right target every once in a while. Thanks for spending another one in my head. I have an honest question for the comments, because I genuinely refuse to believe it is only me. Who are you beating in the shower? What is the argument your brain keeps staging on a loop that is never, ever actually going to happen? Tell me down below. I will go first. Like always, it is the landlord. It is going to be the landlord until the day I die.